Welcome to the New Amsterdam Town Hall, the best podcast bringing you all things New Amsterdam Football Club. Each week, you're going to get to know some of our coaches, players, and even our owners, and we're also going to bring you conversations with some of the top professionals in the American soccer scene. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. On today's show, we're going to dive into some of the story of New Amsterdam Football Club. We're here with two of the founders, and they're going to tell us a little bit about what really makes New Amsterdam Football Club unique. And so we're here with Lawrence, as well as Evan Nadaner, two of our co-founders. So Evan, let's start off by hearing from you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what got you started to be involved with New Amsterdam.
So Max Mansfield and myself founded the Football Project about 5-6 years ago, giving kind of players who are overlooked a chance at playing professional soccer or any kind of soccer at the next level in Europe. We both had really good experiences. I mean, personally, I had unbelievable experiences in Europe. It kind of showed me a different perspective of the world. It made me fall in love with football, gave me a really good background. And like for the last 6 years, I was just learning about football in Europe. And it was kind of like me going to a master's program. So yeah, Max and I, in the meantime, were, setting up a platform from top down, all ages, to get players into Europe. And then around the time of the pandemic, Lawrence and Max started talking really heavily about a professional club that they wanted to start. That was kind of founded by players. And it was a beautiful idea that I really couldn't turn down. I always wanted to be a part of a professional football club in the inside and as a player. And it was almost a no-brainer to try to hop on board and see how I could help in any way. And I was really gracious that Lawrence gave me an opportunity to be in a position not only on the field, but off the field, because that is my dream. My dream is to take football as far as I can. I mean, it started out as a player. It got me through college and gave me a job as well, making money in Europe. And now I'd like to take it, be a career as more into the business side. And I'm really glad Lawrence gave me an opportunity, and kind of here we are.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Lawrence, anything you want to kind of add about that story and how it came to be?
I mean, the quick background is that when I was younger, I had played at, local New York area clubs like Med Opal with Giovanni Savarese, and then New York Red Bulls Academy when I was on the under 18 team there with players like Sean Davis and whatnot. And went more down the healthcare route for a period of time with my telemedicine business. But then in the last 6 or 7 years, just started playing in the Cosmopolitan Soccer League in the New York area. And we were sponsoring our local team there, got it promoted from Division 2 to Division 1, and then had an experience in England briefly where we had brought our healthcare business over there because the National Health Service was interested in diabetes prevention, and we got involved in a club in England for a period of time, and we got to see the impact that a grassroots football club could have in the community, where in many cases it became like the central piece of the community. And it wasn't just about soccer, but it was about all the social aspects of a football club. And then the pandemic happened, and we heard about this league that was starting called NISA. And we came back to the US and just became really interested in starting a club in the New York area where they could have a youth academy that could develop some professional players, but also send other players to college. And then also have a men's professional team of those players who play in the Cosmopolitan Soccer League or local leagues that might want to, make the step up to the next level. And so part of this project is about having a men's professional team. We're also in the process of expanding our youth academy as well. But it's also about helping players develop skills off the field that are not playing soccer. We have a unique situation where this club was started by players. And now we have a variety of first team players that are not just playing, but they're helping with the business development aspects of the club, including things like reaching out to sponsors, ticket sales, working with youth soccer clubs to get them to come to the game, fundraising, and so forth. And so it's been a unique situation where instead of being an MLS club where you have to be a billionaire to start a team, this was started by a group of entrepreneurial players who play for the club, but they also were able to execute on the business side because they're multifaceted people. And so it's a very unique club in that respect.
Yeah. How did that speak to you, Evan, and make you want to be involved thinking about a club actually started and somewhat ran by players?
Yeah. a lot of it is that when you go through the playing your whole life, and I'm sure Lawrence can, agree with this, that you see the problems that you kind of want to fix. And that's why a lot of people get into coaching. A lot of people get into coaching to fix the problems, of the coaches they hated. And I think both of us have saw the clubs run poorly all our lives, in America. And I saw it in Europe, how it was run right. So, you're growing up in a situation of America where things aren't done correctly. I think that's just a fact. And we went over to Europe individually on our own time and kind of saw the way it could be run. And I wanted to have a piece of a change. That's why Football Project was founded. And that's why this club is so attractive to me, because you could actually affect at least some part of change in America. And I think what the foundation that's built at New Amsterdam Football Club will obviously grow, but maybe it'll, infect other clubs and it'll be contagious to a more sustainable player run team that's, I don't know, just helps out more people in the long run, giving them a chance to better their, help them out for the long term. It's not just about football, because, a lot of people in this country, especially football, is very, very temporary. Just based on the system and, getting up and down the leagues, it's very, very temporary. And, the job kind of learning that you can have will last you a lifetime. So getting in the ground floor, being able to learn about a business, learning about growing a football club, and, applying the things I learned as well from a player to in the management side was, I don't know, it seemed like a dream come true in a lot of ways.
Yeah. What are some maybe examples of maybe how players are also getting the opportunity to learn some of the business side, learn some of the management side, and kind of be involved on both sides of the field?
Yeah.
I think it's really, go ahead.
No problem. We'll both chime in. The club trains right now from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. Right. And so what do you do the rest of the day? Some of the players at this level of soccer coach, but I think we have about 7 first team players now where we invite them to go to the club's office down the street at 85 Broad Street. We train at Pier 40 and then we go to 85 Broad Street, which is a WeWork office we have there. Ironically, 85 Broad Street used to be New Amsterdam Town Hall a couple hundred years ago, which we only recently realized. But some of the players will come to the office, and we have one player that recently got an eye doctor to become an investor in the company and offered to become our sponsor and offer free surgery to some of the players. Others had. And
this is an investor in
New Amsterdam.
New Amsterdam. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Others, for example, were contacting youth soccer clubs on the island and doing group ticket sales and giving discounts to the kids to come to the game at Hofstra, for example. And so one was working on that. So those are just 2 examples where they help with sponsorships, with ticket sales, with fundraising. And some of the players on the team have gone to, Ivy League schools like Columbia, Stanford, and so forth. And they don't just want to play 3rd division soccer. They want to do, business development and that kind of thing. And then, right now we only have 7 players on the first team that have had other jobs in the club. But our goal for next season is really to expand it to anyone in the club with any level of education in the club, where every player could have some sort of opportunity to do something for the club, whether that's, selling tickets or doing a pop-up store in the local community to sell jerseys, or coaching and getting paid to do that, for example. We really want all of the players to have not just an opportunity to play at 3rd division level, but to actually have a way to, have their income maybe be a bit higher than if it was just playing soccer, because it's hard to make ends meet for most players at this level. People in this league are not getting paid, $30,000 a month, right? And so I think that we haven't done a perfect job of that so far, but we really want all of the players by the next season to have the opportunity, if they choose to. It's not a requirement, but if they choose to have other, business jobs, because ultimately not everybody in this league is going to, move to Europe and play in Champions League. They're going to need a life after soccer, and we want to make sure that they're prepared to, do a business job after soccer or have other life experience, versus us just paying them, $2,000 a month for 4 years between the ages of 25 and 29, and then they have nothing. And then we just cut them from the club. And so that's one of our concerns, is that what about these people, after soccer, where they're not even making that much money from soccer? And so what can we do for them afterwards? And again, we haven't done a perfect job of that, but we'd like to give every player the opportunity going forward. And actually, one of the other things we're going to do starting next season is that every player that's signed to the first team will also own equity in the club. And so we believe that will make us the first and only professional soccer team in the world where every player that signs a professional contract owns shares in the club, which could become valuable, in the future. So that's another announcement that we're about to make.
That's awesome. Yeah. Evan, what have you seen as far as, some of the ways that players are involved kind of on both sides?
Yeah, and I just want to point out, I definitely will answer the question. It's a good question. But just the conversations in the rooms you're in now that I would never be privileged to before, just the Goldman Sachs bankers that I just happen to speak to, or these very, very like wealthy investors that I happen to speak to, and just learning about life and learning about the ins and outs of business, learning about equity, learning how to make money for your family in the future is kind of incredible. But like, also in the office, it helps out the club. It's a kind of a symbiotic relationship because a lot of lower league clubs are understaffed, and they're also looking for people who care. And that's kind of the void filled by players who are playing, because nobody wants to do better for the club than the player. They have like skin in the game already. It's unbelievable that he will offer equity, which is it's a dream as well, but they also really are invested because they want the team to do well. So they'll do a good job in the office, and it's kind of a good relationship that way. And it's like also it's kind of like a big circle in the sense that like they play, but also they try to work on the money coming in, and it comes back around, and we have like a better team in the end. And a lot of it from the player side has been really helpful in a lot of ways, but kind of bridging the gap between management and player is a really big aspect. So a lot of it we're around the owner, and some of the day-to-day things that maybe the owner might not see that we can see, we can bridge the gap, and you have like a more level-headed, down-to-earth club where everything is kind of seen. Because a lot of times, like if you look at the angle of Arsenal has an owner who's absent, and they all complain that he's just funding it and has no piece of it. And that's a big problem. There's nobody telling him the day-to-day that's going wrong, what could help the club. And a lot of people, the young players, they see it and they know what they want. They know how to fix it. And they have an ear with our boss, who's also a lot younger and is more agile to like adapt to like, feedback in some senses. So you have people on the ground also working in basically upper management to like, they see the day-to-day and they can also help out, because there's usually a big gap. They're usually like the players, and then you'll have like the C-suite, and then that's a hard communication. But now if you kind of like slowly crescendo that into the top, you have a better understanding of like the day-to-day problems, but also the players see the big money problems, and they understand the stresses of upper management. And they're also maybe a little more patient with upper management with like different issues, like, oh, where is this? Where's that? And they understand like, oh yeah, small startups, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Their money has to come in, and people understand, like the players also have a better understanding of the stresses of the club. And they're maybe a little more patient on that side, rather than like just sitting there on the field and be like, where's my water? And they're not understanding like the real stresses that go into like a lower league club. So I think it becomes like everybody's like on the same page because everybody sees it.
And also, I was going to say as well, we have an interesting model as well, where we've been kind of like crowdfunding for the club as well. I always think it's funny when people say, oh, I'm the owner of the club. No, actually, that's not true. I'm one of many owners of the club, where, so far we've had, I think we have like 30 or 40 investors now. But ultimately, we're going to do a crowdfunding campaign as well and have thousands of individual, investors and owners in the club, the same way that you would see clubs in Europe have, half of the club owned by the public or by fans, as well. And just another interesting aspect to it. It's kind of like more of a flat organization rather than have it be, one billionaire who kind of owns an MLS team. It's more of like, well, this is a club that's owned by, thousands of people. And it's also a club where the players are included in actually building the club instead of just being treated as players and so forth. And it's more of like a flat organization rather than this kind of top down kind of thing. And we don't get it right 100% of the time. I mean, sometimes we make stupid decisions, but it's a lot more collaborative than I feel like, a corporate MLS club where it's owned by a billionaire and whatnot. And so it's a very,
and you never see him.
Yeah. And it's an entrepreneurial project,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's truly just a business. It's like a business move for those owners as opposed to like a community move.
Yeah, because I think a huge problem, I think one of America's biggest problems is every football club is built on the wrong thing. They're all built to make money. And that the first step, if you're building a club to make money, is the mistake. This club is built on actually, doing something right. So you have the first step, and you need more football minds in football clubs. Most times in America, you just have business minds. And that's the biggest mistake, because then you cut corners where you don't know where you shouldn't cut corners in a lot of ways. And that's why it's good to have like football minds, football players, whatever the background. It's just like it's like a big advisory board of different kind of backgrounds of football and business, kind of learning it, advising in ways that they see, that may help. And obviously all of our suggestions aren't taken. I mean, I'd love to train at 2:00, but that we got to work. So there's like suggestions that we have, and they're, obviously taken, but more football minds is always a better thing for football club. And that's like lost. We don't have enough experts in this country for soccer, but it's better to have a lot of people who, think the same way on football than just have like, all right, I'm very like, the VC kind of model versus like, a lot of very, very, effective at making money, but you lose sight of everything in football. And that's love, that's passion, it's player first. And that's what we are. We're kind of a player first model. That's kind of what's lost, in Europe, the product is the player. It comes down to contracts, and there's so many things that happen. And we're trying to push through that barrier of like, everything's, replaceable. And, we want a core group of players. We want, a foundation that is very collaborative, and it kind of, like we said, it kind of crescendos up rather than just like a hard stop at the top and a hard stop at the bottom. And maybe you have like David Villa in between. That's about it. At these big clubs, you want more of like a collaborative model where everybody's important and everybody kind of sees the ins and outs of it.
Yeah. Well, so I think this is a great conversation that we'll continue to have about what are the benefits of having players more involved, not just in playing, but really involved in the whole aspect, the whole business of the football club. On the other side, there's questions about, is it good to have owners playing for the club? I know there's been questions asked about that. And so, Lawrence, like, what do you say to people that are asking you about, is it okay to have owners playing for the club?
I would say it's absolutely okay. The club was started by a group of players who love soccer, who had an amateur team that were playing together for several years prior to this club. And we wanted to make the jump from amateur to pro. And there's a lot of leagues in NISA that have had that model. If I'm not mistaken, I believe, Maryland Bobcats, Chattanooga, Detroit, these were all amateur teams that then made the jump to play pro. And in their first season had many players from that amateur team on the pro team. And so I think that it's perfectly fine. It's like, would you rather have a group of soccer players that love the game start a club, or would you rather have some private equity person who hates soccer that just wants to make money from it, start the club? And as I mentioned, we're going to have actually all of our players own a piece of the club as well. The same way that if you worked at a tech startup, they issue stock options to every single one of their employees all of the time. And again, I'm not the only owner of the club. Evan owns a piece of the club, and so will every other player. I think it's fine at the end of the day. It's not like we were a bunch of hockey players that decided, okay, all of a sudden we're going to play soccer. I think we all admit that no one on this team, including myself, is like the best soccer player in the world. Nobody's on the U.S. national team here. This is third division, grassroots community soccer, very similar to like EPSL teams and cosmopolitan leagues and so forth, where it was started by a group of local people that wanted to put a club together for their community. So I think we all openly admit that we're not on the U.S. national team here, but we also love the game, and that's why we started the club. And so I think it's a beautiful thing to have owners being able to play, and for every player to also be an owner, which is something that I don't think any other NISA team can say, that they've given equity to their players, which is how the wealthiest people in society have made their wealth. It's not from a salary. It's from owning equity in businesses.
Yeah, it's ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Once community members begin to own pieces of their community, I think that's really when things begin to turn around. Evan, what have your thoughts been on this? Kind of a little bit more from like the player, like more on the field side of, having someone like Lawrence suit up in goal sometimes.
Yeah, I obviously have no problem with it. And a lot of it is people don't want to consider that people can do two things well at once. It's like they want to be labeled. So it's like a lot of people already have labels of people as owners, and they can't consider it as a player. If you take the title out, you probably wouldn't have a problem. So why do you have a problem in theory with someone being excellent at one thing, which would be business, allowed him to play and then ended up playing? Because if there was no title on it, I don't think people would really have a problem. I don't think people would have a problem, except that people think, oh, you want your cake and eat it too. Well, I mean, in theory, if you would have went to done all your work and been able to have a club, you would also want to have your cake and eat it too. I think that's like the privilege of, and the prerogative of people who do kind of excel at something. You are allowed to do that because it's your prerogative. And especially if you are, fine enough and can compete at the level. So it's just kind of about people being a little upset about having I'm going to say it again, having your cake and eating it too. And sometimes that's people are, in a position that they can do it. And so all power to him. I think it's just, especially he's good enough to play in a lot of situations. So there should be no problem with a lot of people being, and with a lot of owners playing. It's just there.
It's been done before, right? I mean, certainly we're not at the level of these people, but Tim Howard did it in USL at one point. My childhood idol, who I openly admit I will never be as good as, but it's been done before, as well. And again, it's just a group of players that wanted to build a club for their, community and continue playing with their passion for the game and whatnot, and give an opportunity to, dozens of other players to play professionally in the New York community. And I think we're going to continue to be the only club in the world where every player is going to own a piece of the club going forward. Yep. So there will be many, many owners.
Yeah. So what are they going to get mad at all of us now, I guess?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So I think this has been great. These are some great questions to continue to dive into. For all the listeners, we encourage you continue to join us on this podcast, because obviously this is a unique project. This is a unique team. What the team at New Amsterdam is working to do is really transform how football is looked at in the States. So make sure you come back. We're going to continue to talk through some of these questions. And Lawrence, Evan, any parting words before we close the episode?
Come to a game.
Yeah,
we got the game. We got the game of the week on Saturday. We're trying to pack the house. Come out the Hofstra if you're available.
Yeah, make sure to head to the website, which is nafcny.com, to head to the shop to see the schedule, get your tickets, all that jazz. So we'll see you next time on the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the New Amsterdam Town Hall. If you haven't already, head over to your favorite media platform and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Visit us online at nafcny.com for tickets, merch, and all the latest news on New Amsterdam Football Club. We'll see you next time.